Now let's face it, I'm a big fan of simulation games, which is precisely the variety that has me stressing out over the time management and trying to get all my numbers in a row with limited assets. And then I found out about Life Eater, developed by Strange Scaffold, the minds behind one of my favorite games from last year, El Paso Elsewhere. However, this new game has the outlandish pitch of being a horror, fantasy, kidnapping simulation game where you also sacrifice people to a dark lord. It's so absurd that it has to be something special, and you know what? I wasn't let down. Life Eater begins as a really cursed individual, so cursed they won't give you his name. This player character was one day cursed by a dark god named Zimforth. You see, Zimforth apparently rules the earth and will cause the apocalypse, but there's one way to stave off the end times though. A nice and straightforward yearly task ritual sacrifice. It's honestly not an immersive simulator. Life Eater instead sits you down in front of a target timeline, visually similar to that in a game editing program. However, instead of blocks of inserted media, you have the schedule of your target over the course of a week, or targets, depending on how clear Zimforth is with the orders. To uncover sections of the target timeline, you click on these scheduled blocks and can perform different tasks. Each task costs a certain amount of time and raises the suspicion gauge. If the task is successfully executed, the actions of the target during this time will be uncovered. However, certain schedule blocks will require time-heavy investments or more invasive suspicion-increasing tasks to cover. Once you've gathered enough information of your target, you can abduct them and perform a ritual known as watering the flowers, in which you dissect them in a way that functions as a knowledge check to see if you know everything about them. But of course, it's not as simple as just clicking all the boxes to uncover them, because that time heaviness comes from a literal timer that decreases every time you select an action. You'll have to strategize and plan what time frames you want to uncover to ensure you have all the necessary information. And then Zimforth will leave you goddamn riddles instead of giving you a target. This effectively turns Life Eater into a stressful, horror-laden puzzle game. Tensions are high and the title is highly atmospheric. The game has a phenomenal soundtrack as well, and the user interface is easy to read, understand, and figure out. It's low in visual detail, but it's enough to be highly evocative and leave the most intriguing hints to work out the character of the person you must abduct and kill. The primary campaign has 10 levels and is clearable in about 4 hours if you don't get tremendously stuck on a particular section. While this isn't a ton of content, there is an endless mode planned as a free update in the near future, allowing for more gripping problem solving. This whole experience is just rather compelling because there's a perfect story here. The intro sets up the gameplay in a very compelling way. It is backed by that phenomenal soundtrack with some incredible vocal performances, and the title only gets more and more intense and upsetting as it goes on. Every part of this game works in service of another. The narrative supports the gameplay, and the presentation of the mechanics add to that narrative, and the gameplay adds to the narrative as well. I was enthralled by Life Eater's gritty and tragic tone and atmosphere, was hooked on the simulation mechanics, so I played until I got stuck. Then when I got unstuck, I played the rest of the game. I'd intended to take a break before the final level, but when I got there, I found a finale so well presented, I couldn't just stop. I was losing my mind. Life Eater is a phenomenal game that excels at everything it tries to do. This entertaining and tense title, as a side effect, will probably leave the visual of a countdown timer decreasing and repeating itself inside of your dreams. It's an incredible experience that justifies the price of admission, and I can't wait to see what this team does next. Noisy Pixel is giving Life Eater a 9 out of 10. Thanks for watching. The video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth, and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.